Welcome to the Post-Mormon Peace podcast. I am your host, Derek Williams, today, and I'm excited to be able to share a little bit more of some progress in my own life, personally, when it comes to finding peace within myself and my relationship with other church members and people in general. The last solo episode that I recorded on my own, I was basically kind of maybe ranting a little bit or talking about some of my issues, concerns, triggers with the church. And the whole goal or point of that episode was not to just complain, but to kind of share that inner peace is not something that you just check off the checklist and feel good about and not have to worry about again. It's a constant progression and practice. So, once you get good at a sport or get in the habit of going to the gym, there are still times that it continues to be challenging, and you have to continue to push through those times and just continue to make an effort. So, in that context, with that kind of in the backdrop, I wanted to record another episode and just kind of share some recent thoughts and ideas now that I have moved back and lived in Utah for over a year. I think I've actually become more appreciative of certain aspects of the church and Mormon culture, and maybe in general more open to religion. And that's kind of surprised me. When I first moved back to Utah, there were things about being surrounded by the Mormon culture that were difficult, things that I noticed, things that bothered me and kind of brought up old emotions. And I think when you've gone through like a major belief transition, that's probably pretty normal. For a while, you kind of notice everything. But over time, I've started to notice something different. Instead of only seeing things that I disagree with, I'm becoming better at seeing the things that I genuinely appreciate. There was a day that I think I had maybe sent a message or had a conversation with someone where I kind of I had made a complaint about, some very. I think this is what it was. It was a general conference had been had, and I, like probably several of us that have left the church, saw just like maybe one or two clips that as somebody that's left the church could kind of pick up on and say, "Oh my gosh, can you believe this message?" And I recognized that in myself, and I thought, you know what, this is relatively critical and kind of hypocritical, because I'm kind of just pointing out I'm cherry picking the worst aspects that I can find. In a way to make myself maybe feel better about my position of having left the church. And so after I recognized that, I thought, you know what? I'm going to watch just like a YouTube video of somebody's recap of conference, and I'm going to write down, I'm going to take notes. And I'm only going to take notes on things that I think are really good focuses and really good principles. And I did that. And it was interesting. It was a very interesting exercise because there was a lot of really good things. They just were good focuses, good principles, good activities. And so it was such a good exercise to me because it was like, I almost found myself saying to myself in my head, wow, Derek, you purposely just picked the worst aspects when there's so much good here. And, there's things that, I personally have heard people like basically, like, maybe they might look up to someone, and then once they find something bad about that person, they just disregard everything that person has ever said now, and like they can't look up to them in any way. And this is where you often hear that phrase, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater." And so essentially, no matter where things come from, there are things to be learned. And it's very easy to pass those opportunities by and to write them off. But if we really are interested in growing in the best way possible, we can find those gold nuggets in pretty much anywhere. So there are things in general. What I'm saying is, there are things that in the culture that I think are just so good. I think the community aspect, the focus on family, service, commitment, being honest with your fellow man, and trying to like really live those values, and having something bigger than yourself that you're committed to. So all these things are really good. Obviously, I don't suddenly believe the truth claims of the church again, but I also don't feel the need to dismiss everything associated with the church simply because I don't believe those claims. And that's been a really healthy development for me. I want to talk about another question that I don't know the answer to. And this has been brought up to me, and I think it's worth like really kind of pondering and thinking about. I feel like I have pretty strong values. I work hard. I try to be honest with others that I talk to, and just do the right thing, essentially. I care about my family. I try to treat people well. I love growth. I enjoy growth for the sake of growth and becoming a better person. But for me, none of those things are based on religion anymore. Personally, I don't need a belief in God to tell me that honesty and hard work is valuable. I don't need a commandment to tell me that I should love my kids. I don't need the promise of heaven or the fear of hell or some punishment to make me want to be a good person. I live this way because, based on my experience, this seems like a good way to live, and I enjoy it more. But here's the question. If I make this decision, what happens several generations from now? If I'm raising my kids and I don't give them a strong religious framework, and then they don't give their kids one, and then their kids don't give their kids one, does something eventually get lost? I've kind of viewed this at times as an advantage because for me, growing up, all of the morals and values that I had were completely based on the foundation of the church. Well, if Joseph Smith was a true prophet, or if the Book of Mormon is true, then Joseph Smith was a true prophet, and all of the revelations given to him and everything that we practice and all the commandments, they're all true, which works for so long. But if you lose that keystone, then everything else crumbles. And so in a way, like, I didn't want my kids to be put in that position. I didn't want them to, have something that could crumble and then lose all of their other morals and values. So my thought process in teaching my kids those morals and values is to teach them to them and, just talk about the good that those morals and values lead to and why they're good without any belief in a deity or an organized religion. But I do acknowledge that the question is a valuable one. What's more likely to be carried on? I think because of a religion having so much culture and a way of life that correlates with the values, the morals, the principles, and the practices, those are more likely to be passed down. So I genuinely don't know, and I think it's an interesting question. I just, at this point, I have to make decisions on what feels right to me. And for many years, I felt like I was being dishonest because I wasn't voicing and talking about my questions and concerns. I had to be very kind of choosy in what I talked about and who I opened up to. And so I didn't like the feeling of that. Church to me felt very full of inner conflict because I would hear a lot of things that I would disagree with or want to ask questions about, but I couldn't. Anyway, that's just kind of like an interesting thought, and we're all doing our best. I think that's the best reminder. I would say my decision may not be the best one. It may not be the smartest one, but it is my decision and I'm making it. I'm continuing to try and do better each day with what I teach my kids. And ultimately, I do think at the end of the day, what is the most important? It's, do I spend time with my kids? Do I love and accept them? And do I try and be a good example? Those things I think are the most important, and that can have everything to do with religion, or it can have nothing to do with religion. So again, just an interesting thought to kind of work through, and that you could kind of ask yourself wherever you're at on the spectrum. Another point that I've been pondering is that one thing I don't want to do is leave Mormonism and immediately create another system where I pretend that I have all the answers. I spent a significant portion of my life believing very strongly that I understood how the world worked, that there was this eternal framework, and this is here are all the answers. And now I'm much more comfortable saying, I don't know. Maybe religion provides something that's incredibly important that is difficult to reproduce outside of religion. Maybe people need rituals and community and shared stories, traditions and beliefs that can connect generations. Or maybe we can create those things without traditional religion, but there is some truth on both sides. So what my point is that it would be easy, and I have found myself guilty of this, of growing up and being super confident in my beliefs religiously, and then as I've transitioned out of the church, wanting to take that same level of confidence and saying, no, this is wrong, you should believe blah blah blah, and this is why my position's correct. But I'm getting more and more comfortable, like I said, kind of saying, I don't know, you know what, this is where I'm at. These are the questions on my mind. Here's what I'm trying to do with it. And I'm getting to the point of kind of enjoying that more and more. So the approach that I've kind of settled on with my kids and my family, being the father, is that I want my kids to feel like they have permission to explore. I want them to understand what I believe, but I also want them to know that they don't have to believe what I believe. If one of my kids eventually becomes, religious in Mormonism or any other church, I want to be okay with that. Obviously, I have preferences. I think probably all of us, like, if we could pick and choose what those around us believe, we would probably pick that they believe and view life the same way that we do. Would kind of make things easier. It might be a little bit more bland. It's kind of fun to have differences and have different perspectives on things. But like I said, as a parent, I'm going to teach values. Teach the things that I've learned through my experience, read different books from them. I don't know if I've shared it in the past, but like we have a Bible that is like kind of like a simplified Bible that teaches the Bible stories, and I think we still read those together, and I want them to understand the stories and where they come from. And I think regardless of whether or not a true is or a story is technically correct or true, there's always things that we can learn from them. So there's a difference between teaching my kids what I value and then requiring them to adopt my worldview. And I think that's an important distinction. It'd be very easy for me to almost be similar to a very strict orthodox Mormon parent and kind of put my foot down in my commitment to being not religious. So, what's the principle? It's accepting others. Which kind of leads to my next point. The more I've thought about the idea of actually self-acceptance, I'm thinking through, questions. How comfortable am I with myself? How comfortable am I in who I am, how I act, what I believe, how I treat others? Because if I'm genuinely comfortable with myself, I don't need my kids to believe what I believe in order to validate me. I don't need members of my family who are still active in the church to agree with me. I don't need people who listen to this podcast to agree with me. And I don't even need somebody who criticizes me to change their opinion of me. Their opinion can exist, and I can still be okay and can be myself. That's a very different kind of peace. I do as much as I can. So I guess in essence, what I'm saying is, if I truly like love and accept myself, and someone else has a very critical opinion of me, my opinion of myself doesn't have to be changed. I don't have to be upset or hurt by what they say. And vice versa. If someone thinks really highly of me, it doesn't necessarily mean that I change my opinion of myself. But at the same time, I don't think that self-acceptance means ignoring feedback from other people, because I actually really appreciate other people's perspectives of me or of my thoughts and different things. I don't want self-acceptance to be, I love myself, and so anything that anybody else says about me doesn't matter, because that doesn't seem very useful either. Sometimes other people see things in us that we don't see, and so when someone criticizes me or makes a judgment about me, positive or negative or whatever, ideally I can be secure enough to actually look at it. And I can ask, is there something true here? Is there something that this other person can see about me that I can't see myself? Is there something about myself that I could learn? Is there something that I want to change after getting this information? And if there is, great. That's an opportunity to grow. But if I look at it carefully and decide, you know what? No, I'm actually comfortable with this part of myself, then I don't have to fight the other person about it. I could potentially become curious instead. I could say, tell me more. What are you seeing? Tell me why this bothers you or is uncomfortable for you. What experiences have you had that have led you to looking at me or looking at this in this way? And then even criticism can become useful. Either way, I can learn something. I can learn something about myself. I can learn something about the other person across from me. So, both of those have value. All that being said, much easier said than done, right? Like, I mean, I know that I'm talking about something where these conversations can be very sensitive, difficult to hear, but very worthwhile. And there is a spectrum, right? Like if you look at, like we could say from 1 to 10, 1 is something that's like a piece of feedback that's like really easy to hear and take. Maybe it's like, hey, I like how you chose your outfit. That's something really easy to hear. Something very difficult would be to hear, like, I think the way that you are living your life is ridiculous. And then there's things in the middle. So I don't think, if you're not great at hearing something that's maybe level 3 out of 10 difficulty and responding well to that, you're not going to probably be able to manage something that's like level 8, 9, or 10. So the point that I'm advocating for is to look at all those different pieces and different things that you get and find where are you comfortable and how can you kind of stretch yourself. Maybe you're comfortable at a 3 out of 10. So then when you can recognize a 4 and then a 5, that instead of, just feeling uncomfortable and not saying anything and ignoring it, that then you can allow yourself to ask more questions and get curious about it and see where it takes you. If you don't like where it takes you, that's okay too. This isn't something I think you have to do, but I do think that it is something that adds a lot of value to experiencing life in a different way. So I do think that it's worthwhile. So let me kind of wrap up with this. I think an interesting thing for me is maybe a sign that I've become more peaceful about leaving the church and kind of this whole journey is that I don't need the church to be bad or wrong anymore. I can disagree with it and I can appreciate it as well. I can recognize harm and I can recognize good. I can be grateful for things that Mormonism gave me without believing that I need to go back. I can wonder whether religion provides things that my worldview doesn't provide as easily. I can allow my kids to come to different conclusions than I have. I can even allow myself to change my mind as I continue through life. So maybe peace isn't finally figuring everything out. Maybe it's being more comfortable with yourself so that you don't have to. So I think one of the biggest things that I'm learning is that peace requires a certain amount of openness towards other people, towards criticism, towards religion, openness toward people who see the world completely differently than I do, and even openness toward the possibility that some of the things I believe today might change. I don't know exactly what my kids will believe. I definitely don't know what my grandkids or great-grandkids will believe. What I can do is try to live a life that feels honest to me, teach the values that I've found to be meaningful, and create an environment where the people that I love feel free to figure out some of these questions for themselves. And maybe that's enough. Thank you for taking the time to listen and to provide feedback. If you want to help with our efforts in any way, leaving a review about the podcast is always very helpful. If you have a recommendation for us to interview someone, or you think we would be good going on another podcast, definitely feel free to make an introduction. The email is postmormonpeace@gmail.com. Take care, everyone, and have a great day.